Based simply on a curious observation, really, why do you make reference to God when talking about non-duality? It seems dualistic here and contradictory and contrary to non-separation. Could you define God for us, please? Thank you very much. Yes. Yes. Well, I mean, so Advaita Vedanta originally came from India, and I think in India it's often referred to as God. God's will, all is God. So Ramesh Balsakar would very much say it's God's will. So, so I think the original language through India was very much the absolute, it's calling the absolute God. That God isn't a separate entity that's in the sky, it isn't someone separate from us. God is the unmanifest. God is all things and no things. But to our Western mind, it's like God, because we're brought up with God as this archetypal figure that lives in the sky and initiates us into heaven and hell when we die. Yeah, so we've got all these kind of ideas about God and words we like or we don't like. So yeah, it's just, I would say it's more somebody's preference for words than anything else. God, 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 God. It's a funny word, isn't it? God, God. Seems like a different life when I used to think he lived up in the sky. And it was a hymn. Yeah. So, so God to me is the same as love and manifest, consciousness, no thing, everything, formless and form. It's not any difference to me. And could you define consciousness, please? As again, it appears dualistic here and ultimately is illusory also. Cheers. Yeah. So this is really not an intellectual subject. So it really doesn't matter what words we're calling it. So like this idea that this word seems more dualistic than that word. Every word is dualistic because we're speaking in opposites. So consciousness as opposed to no consciousness, or the unmanifest as opposed to the manifest. Yeah. So I wouldn't engage in this type of thinking of trying to get the right language, whereas I would concentrate more on where is the speaking coming from? Where are the thoughts coming from? Where is it all coming from? So consciousness is the precipice between no thing and everything. It is what life is using to experience itself. But in a way, consciousness doesn't exist. There is simply this happening and nothing experiencing this. But if we go, more into explaining, we could say that consciousness is like the precipice, and when awakening happens, there is a movement back to this big consciousness. But not the personal awareness, the big consciousness prior to this. But this big consciousness isn't located anywhere. It's totally empty on one side, and it's in all things. So that big looking is all things and no things. It's like kind of like a slide into the infinite, because it completely disappears when you get there. Words are really not the most important thing. I can listen to somebody who can articulately speak non-duality in the most refined, seemingly least dualistic words there is, and it's nothing in comparison to somebody that is speaking from no place, that's using God's will and consciousness and all words which appear very separate, giving darshan or something. So it's really, where are the words coming from? It's really beyond the mind. Where is the sounds coming from? When somebody is speaking from an identified person with really correct words, that's very different from somebody that's completely unidentified, that's speaking in very dualistic words. It's a very different feel to it. So I wouldn't worry so much about your words. You're not going to get the right words and then suddenly get non-duality. It's where are all the words coming from? And yes, it seems to want to express it accurately. So jnana yoga wants to express non-duality as accurately as it can. But the most important thing is, where is all coming from? And it's not intellect, it's not your mind that knows this. And the mind is so cunning, because it's like shh, 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 pretending it doesn't know this, and that it's beyond the mind that's seeing this. It's and then just beyond that one that's trying to understand or hold on to this, there is no mind. Looking for no one, for nothing. Thank you for your question.